My role is to help the individual, but also keep resources available.
What happens is a lot of times the first, when an AMR or whatever it's called, or ambulance service is called, many times it's the police or fire that are on site to do the initial stabilization, triage that's needed.
I can get there, usually before the ambulance, and determine whether or not that ambulance is needed. If not, we can disregard them and they can return to service and they can go handle something else.
Do you have an apartment number?
That's a negative. We just had 1780 miles from AMR. Let me see if I can get one for you. Let's do, sir. Go ahead.
I have Officer Daniele with me. If you can lock her in. We're going to be out on a detail across the city. Well, Sean's ready to go anywhere in the city now, and we'll go along with him.
So what's going on here then? The chap was called out for...
He had, he's expressing now that because he has corona, it's affecting him, him mentally too. He's having some anxiety related around the possibility of having corona.
So he felt like he needed to go to the hospital to manage his anxiety and to be tested for COVID. So I was just able to just talk to him and just, calm him down a little bit. So we just put together a safety plan for tonight, and he's got an appointment scheduled for his COVID testing tomorrow.
What we found was that a lot of the calls the officers were going to were because of mental illness. The police option is jail, hospital, or advise and release. And a lot of times that's not going to cut it for somebody with mental health issues.
It's very expensive to send officers out there to pull an ambulance in, to put somebody who's physically fine in the back of an ambulance, send them off to the emergency room, and it's all at the very high level of emergency service response.
There's so many different calls. You learn something every single day. Like, my next call could be, I don't know, talking to a kid, on the street, and I could, have a quality of life call, the next call. There's so many different calls. You don't know what to expect until you're dispatched.
We were never really given that much training in mental health and mental illness issues. We're pretty good at recognizing the effects of alcohol, because there's a lot of other, signs that go with that we can tell, you're under the influence, so we need to do this or that. Mental health can be disguising for somebody that's violent. We're out there by ourselves, and there's got to be more resource out there than we know of that can come and help us.
Police are responding sort of many times after the fact. We have to get to the root causes, the core of it.
In 16 we came down here, and this office didn't exist, nor did MGM, and we were tasked with setting up basically a unit within the police department to work on all things downtown. So Hub and Core brings that person into a setting where we have all different social services available. You have mental health, you have hospitals, you have the school department. COVID has made it so that people aren't taking their medications, they're not getting it, they're not going to doctor's appointments. So we're seeing a large rise in mental health calls. This is probably the most important tool that we have, because it's loaded full of capable people. To have a clinician with us who may be familiar with the person, may have a history, may know the meds, may know the doctors they see, it's of great advantage.
Sometimes a person wants to not speak to a police officer, even though the police officer is there to help her, help he or she. They want to speak to somebody that can relate to them.
I show up and people say, "Oh, you're just here for the police. You're just..." No, I'm here for you. I have two IDs. I have my police ID, which pretty much just gets me into the building, and then I got my BHN ID. So I show them that. I say, look, I have sort of a dual role. I respond with the police, but ultimately I'm here for you.